Hey, folks, ready to master your finances?
Whether you're managing your money solo or with a whole family, we've got you covered.
Stay tuned because we're going to share some tips and our top tips and insights to help you budget smarter and save more effectively.
All right, let's dive in and let's transform your financial game plan.
Welcome back to our family channel, Richard's Family Legacy. Today, we're going to document our journey on building our family legacy. I'm Jermaine Richards.
And I'm Camille Richards. We are two siblings working together to establish our goals. And we're bringing it to you every Sunday right here on this channel.
And today, we're discussing money management. Money management.
Money, 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 money. I hope we don't get copyrighted for that.
Well, YouTube will tell us for sure.
I'm sure they will. So let's chat, Jermaine. So just to establish baseline, I am the solo single individual in this scenario, and you are
I'm the married guy. I'm the family guy.
You're the
Not,
family man.
yeah, not family guy like the episodes, by the way.
You are the family man.
I'm the family man.
Yes. So we're going to talk about how I manage my finances and how you manage your finances. And I think this is an important topic to talk about because, again, if we're going into business together, we should see how we look at money management, right? We should know that we align or where we disagree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in any business plan, or well, let me step back. I think in any financial plan, one of the approaches ought to be like how a business runs their finances, right? I think a family and single should operate just like a business. You have income, you have expenses, and it ought to be in the green at the end of the month, right? So one of the things that comes to mind that I think every single financial plan has, whether you're single, whether you're in a family, whether you're a company, it's budgeting. You agree?
I agree. I think a budget is the first great step. Although I feel like budgets can come in many different forms and
Well, 100%, right? 100%. It's going to suit the needs of the outcome. I think once you know what your outcome is,
Mhm.
the budget is going to, it's like a business plan, in my opinion, right? A budget's just like a plan. And many times the plan is going to change, but what's the outcome? What are you looking to gain? What are you looking to achieve? And then you budget. I remember when I was younger, I don't know, I was probably like 13 years old. Do you remember that lady that she had her show? She would go in to different families' homes and just help them organize their budget because they were like spending too much. Did you ever watch that show? I forget that lady's name.
I only
Um,
know like Dave Ramsey used to do that. I didn't know there was a
no, it wasn't Dave Ramsey. It was this older lady. I
oh
forget her name. If you know the name, type it in the comments. But here's what I remember her doing. This one particular couple, like they were so bad with budgeting, right? And they tried it many ways. And what she did was she gave them jars and they had to allocate a certain amount of jar money in the jar depending on the label. So one jar said clothing, one said food, one said entertainment. So every month, what they did is split their money into the different jars, and that's how they had to budget because they couldn't do it on a spreadsheet. They couldn't do it on an app on a phone or anything like that. So I think you're right. Budgeting comes in different forms, but it has to have an outcome. I think the person or family needs to have an outcome of to what they're trying to achieve.
she would probably poo-poo my budgeting strategy because I don't really have a budget besides allocating my money to savings and investing.
So what is your strategy? So your strategy then is what you're saying is you save first and then you spend what's left over.
Basically, I mean, I I think last week we saw that I didn't even know the percentages. But I had to do my taxes this week. So I went through and I figured out the percentages I put into everything before or like once I get a paycheck. So which basically comes out to I save and invest about 44% of my income. That's both it's a little wonky of a percentage because some of it's pre-tax and then the rest of it goes into savings or into spending. Which that spending can be anything as long as I pay off my credit card at the end of the month.
Hmm.
So
Right, right.
that is my
That's
way
your
of doing.
strategy.
That is my strategy. So I think you started off with budgeting, Jermaine, but I think the bigger picture that you're trying to get to is what are the basic principles of money management, right? And I think budgeting is kind of the foundation of that. I think that's a very good start. What other things would you say go into that?
A huge one, and you kind of tailored into it with your strategy, is saving and investing. It's putting money away, right? Putting money aside. And for different reasons. By the way, we recorded a video last week on savings versus investing. So if you haven't seen that video, click on the one last week, episode 5, and you'll see that. But I think when you have a proper budget and you allow for the saving and investing, now you're building on your foundation, right? That creates that uh, cash flow, I will say, at the end of the month that, okay, you know that at least you put something aside.
Okay, so budgeting, saving, and investing. Now, what other aspects would you say go into money management? One thing that I can think of off the top of my head is having an emergency fund, which may fit into that like savings bucket. At least I put it into the savings bucket, but I think
Agreed.
that's a very important kind of aspect of savings.
Most people don't think about emergency funds. Why do you think that's an important thing?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I think, I heard some statistics I didn't actually research this time, but there's like less than 5% of the US population has like enough saved for that they could live off of for a month or something like that. And that's, average me thinking it out, but people aren't prepared, right? Ultimately. And it's important because you never know what may come down the pipe, right? Your car could fail and you need to fix it. You could lose a job. You could end up in the hospital, God forbid. And in the US, that's a financial downfall.
Yeah, it's a
Most people
risk.
go most people go bankrupt because of medical issues. So having a few months worth of savings that you can live off of or that you can use to pay off a significant amount of debt may save your money management strategy in the long run.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, for me, where my emergency fund came in handy, and this is probably not the most relatable situation, but I I was dabbling, I think maybe we talked about it a few episodes ago. So I was dabbling in the stock market and I got lucky and got a significant gain from an option trade. And there was a lot of trades that I were doing and I didn't really think past what I was actively doing. So I didn't put aside any money to go pay the tax man. So I do my taxes the following year and end up with a whopping like $15,000 bill. Now, there was probably ways that I could have lessened that bill if I thought about it, but it was done.
Mhm.
And I think I tend to do my taxes late, so I didn't really have time to figure it out. So I had to pay that much. And thank God I had, the amount saved that I could just pull out of my emergency fund and pay off that debt because that would have put me behind. I would have either been paying, I'd rather take the money out of my emergency fund and lessen that than be paying interest on a loan or interest on paying back taxes, right?
Yeah. And here lies the issue, right? Without an emergency fund, and another principle when it comes to money management is debt management, right? So with debt management, why do people end up in debt? It's the lack of an emergency fund.
And the lack of a budget and sticking to it.
Yeah, which is the lack of a budget, right? So it all trickles back to the foundation. So debt management is huge. It's a big problem. A lot of Canadians and Americans face this challenge with debt, and with rising interest rates going through the roof, the debt is not cheap anymore. There was a time where people would say, use debt, use debt, use debt. It was cheap, but now it's not cheap anymore. Now it's becoming a real problem. And both in single and in family households, it's becoming a real issue. What's another one? What would you say is another major money principle?
So I would say maybe to tie like all of it together. And the reason why you take those steps is for your long-term goals, right? To be able to, in 10, 20 years, make sure that when you retire, you have the money you need to do what you want and that you're not beholden to, working. And who cares if it's 20 years, it could be 5 years down the road, but
Yeah,
it's just planning for that further, that future self, right? Or the future family, making sure that you're set up to have that.
yeah. Well said, well said. What I think would be cool is if we discuss the differences between the single household and the family household, because it's different, right? Some areas are going to overlap for sure. There'll be some similarities, but I think it would be interesting to discuss what some of the differences are. For example, when it comes to expenses, right? Families, obviously, they have to share the responsibilities of all these different expenses that are coming out, right? So, for example, I'm married, husband and wife. We have to share the responsibility of everything, right? Um, how do you do it? Obviously, it from a single household, but what do you experience? Maybe is the better way to put it from a single household.
So I feel like you're putting it nicely. I would say, as someone that's married, you have to ask permission.
Yeah, have you heard the?
Well, or discuss
Well,
before you make large purchases, right?
no,
Uh,
absolutely. Well,
no, which
again,
is
it goes
responsible.
it goes back to the budgeting.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
budget together, right?
Yeah,
Because
you have to.
instead of one person or one horse pulling the carriage, you have two horses pulling the carriage. So,
Yes,
you can't have one going this way and one going that way. You do this.
exactly.
And I think all healthy marriages discuss. Um,
Oh, I think one of the biggest reasons why some marriages fail is because of financial issues. It should be discussed before you even think about marriage.
yeah,
But yeah, for me, I would say that one, it's I don't have to ask anybody or talk to anybody before I spend my money or do something, which just gives me maybe not the best term, but a little bit more freedom, right? But at the same time, if something occurs, that financial burden is only on me. There's no one else to share the load. So if I lose a job, I've got to figure it out. If I have a windfall, I have to figure it out. There's no one else to put into that bucket for me. It all relies on my shoulder. It all comes down on my shoulder. So I have the benefit of having the freedom, but I also have the benefit of having the burden as well, right? So those are the two parts when it comes to there's no one to share my expenses with.
yeah. Which goes into another category of when it comes to the budgeting, right? So
Hmm.
that was our foundation principle. Uh, Budgeting on on a family side is much more complicated, right? I remember when I was single, I only budgeted for me, and I know you'll talk about that in a second. But when I have, multiple kids, for example, the budget split. Like there's so many lines on
Mhm.
our budget, on my family's budget, right? So many things that we think about. Their kids' education, for example, putting money aside for them to go to school. This one wants to do ballerina. This one is thinking about wants to do track and field, and you have all these different lines that I didn't even dream about before, right? So the complexity is there when it comes to budgeting. How do you find it on your side, from your perspective?
Wait, so does Dylan want to do track and field?
Dylan wants to do track and field, yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be fast.
He his
Dylan
goal, and
Bolt.
I'm putting it out publicly. I don't know if he wants it out publicly, but his goal is to beat Usain Bolt, is to be faster than Usain Bolt.
All right, Dylan. I support that 100%. Put the Richards name on the Olympic stage. You
Yeah,
have to
that's it.
come,
That's his goal.
you have to tell him he's got to come up with his own like thing
Yeah.
on to practice that. No, so yeah, my budget, as I briefly went through, is very non-complex. Um, I budget for travel and then I save.
So two
Um,
lines.
two lines. I mean, I've tried. I've gone through like and made like this is how much I'm gonna do for groceries, and this is how much I'm gonna do for eating out. And then I don't feel like cooking, so I eat out more or some. So I don't. I found that to be a habit that does not like to do line by line does not serve me well, and causes me more headache. What I do try to do is I look at where my money is going. So every like quarter, I will look and say, okay, I'm paying for Netflix, I'm paying for my disability insurance, I'm paying for this, and then I'll make sure that I have enough money to cover all of that. And if I need to change anything, I'll change it. And then say, okay, well, I have X, Y, and Z left over. I'll save this and I'll spend this. And then I spend this on whatever the hell I want because I'm
Hmm.
single and an adult. Um, so that's generally my budgeting.
Yeah.
Very non-complex.
So very different, right?
Yeah.
Very different.
Which, I mean, again, I think it goes back to that expense sharing. I am not beholden to anybody, where if you have a bunch of little things that you need to think of, having those line by line items will keep you responsible for the money that's coming in, right? You don't get, tempted by, the new drone that's coming out that's going to be uh point of point of view. It's going to look really cool.
The
Um,
DJI.
Yeah, the Avada. It's tempting. Um, but yeah, you don't get tempted by those things. All right. That's where those line by line items help.
But in defense to that, you can budget for those expenses, right? If your budget allows and it makes sense to do so, then by all means, budget in, whether you're family or single. I think
Absolutely.
I think single people should have drones. I think family people should have drones. But it
Jermaine,
all
did I offend
depends
you?
all depends on the budget lines.
I offended you. You can have a drone, Jermaine. You can have a drone. I'll talk to Latoya. Okay. Don't worry.
No, it's Dylan you'll need to talk to.
Listen, I need to buy him a small drone so he doesn't try to take mine away in Jamaica.
Uh, no, he had and he kept crashing it. I think there's
Yeah,
still
that's
one
exactly why I don't want
in
him
in um
flying my
in our
drone.
neighbor's tree. I have to find that.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna bring him a little mini drone that he can fly while I'm flying mine. But yeah, no, absolutely. You can budget for the things that you want. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can get a
I
drone.
think there should be a fun line in the budget. All right.
Yes.
There should be, absolutely. I'm for that.
I'm gonna send you the Avada. It looks really cool. Um, all right. So we talked about expense sharing, we talked about budgeting complexity. Now, I don't know if this changes a whole lot, maybe a little bit. But saving goals. I think maybe mine, again, it goes with the complexity, is maybe three or four things where you may have more. What are, give me a couple of things that you're currently saving for.
Big ones are kids' education,
Okay.
right? OSAP for Canada, that's the student loans, right? A huge problem over here. So we don't want our kids to have to go through that. So that's a big one. Um, when it comes to that, we don't need to like you mentioned certain things like because the healthcare system is different, right? So we're not worried about that aspect. However, um, we do save for vacation. We put money aside for vacation, retirement. This is huge. This is big on our list, saving for retirement. Uh, those are the main ones. Those are the main ones.
Hmm.
Those are there. Everything else, I think, well, retirement is common. You're going to save for retirement too. Um, Vacation, you already mentioned you put money aside. I think the only uncommon one would be children's
Children.
education.
Yeah, maybe that's like I think that's probably the only uncommon one. I would
Yeah.
say, saving for like a down payment, but that is probably a very similar one as well.
That's a
Um,
common one.
yeah. For me at this current moment, I save for vacation, have investing for retirement, and I have my emergency fund, which I don't actually currently put in a whole. I think I put like 130 or 160. I think it's 130 a month.
Hmm.
Because I've gotten to a point where I'm like about 3 months in, 3 months secure, stretched out, if I, even more if I'm not paying rent, um, where I don't need to put in right now. I may go back later and put more, but so I would say I'm also saving for a down payment if I ever decide to buy a house, maybe.
She's still thinking, yo.
Uh, I just want the space. That's the only thing. Yeah, so saving goals are, I would say, fairly similar.
I agree.
Um,
I think the
in two
majority of them
aspects.
overlap for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure. For sure.
And then, I think these other two kind of come in very similarly, right? The income dynamics, you know, and support, right? Having financial support. Um, what my income is only whatever source that I can come up with right now. It's a single source of income.
Hmm.
Whether or not I get another source of income is always going to be dependent on what I am able to do. There's no one else that's making me income or providing to my pot of income.
Yeah.
Where you, on the other hand, may have an additional source of income if your spouse is currently working,
Yeah,
right?
with the family, it's the dynamics is going to be different, as you mentioned. If both are, then you have different sources, which again, if one person isn't able to, then another one kicks in. So
Mhm.
it goes back to that example of two people pulling that carriage, right? Or
Yeah.
that horse carriage example. So yeah, income dynamics and then the financial support, which both I think ties in together, right?
Yeah, I think they work together.
they kind of work together, right?
Yeah.
Support, the financial support.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I mean, there's one other thing that I would say when it comes to money management, just because I just finished my taxes. And I don't know if it's the same in Canada, because I haven't done taxes in Canada for several years, but married people tend to get a lot more benefits in taxes than single people do.
Not married people, people with children.
No, but even marriage, like if you're married, you get your effective tax rate is lower right? Because you have different brackets. So you get and you can add more to like retirement funds. There's still things that you can do, right? That's why they have the filing single, filing married, single but filing joint, married but filing jointly, because there is some advantage. Yes, children add
There
another
there's
advantage to
there's
it.
over here anyway. I think there's more advantage if you have one high, one low income. Then you can split the income, and then the higher income can go lower because you're passing it. Like if you and your spouse are in two different tax brackets, yeah, there's some benefit there. But if you're both in high tax brackets, I'm not sure, or at least I'm not aware of what the benefit would be.
Okay, let's pull it up. Tax brackets to okay, I'll just go with the US.
Whereas kids, on the other hand, there's tons and tons of benefits.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried,
So
if you ever want to travel and get through the airport fast, it's faster than Nexus. Children.
I don't remember that being a child
What?
getting faster.
Oh, yeah, man. Especially when they were in the strollers, they would come, oh, please come with us. And they would take us from the back of the line and bring
What?
us to the front. Yeah, it's
Oh
beautiful.
gosh.
I'm actually thinking when we're traveling in May to put Olivia in a stroller. I didn't talk to her about it yet, but I'm
She may
thinking
like it.
about it.
She
Oh,
may
she
go
will.
for it.
I don't think she will.
You don't think she would? So, okay. So here, at least this is in the States, right? So, for example, effective tax rate. If you are paying your effective tax rate or your tax rate for a single individual, single payer, um, for people making like 11,000 up to 44,000, run it off, right, is 12%, right? So that's a single taxpayer, right? It's double, even more than double for married filing jointly, right? So the 12% married filing jointly starts at 22, so that's doubled. And then it goes up to, well, it's about double for almost 90,000, right?
Hmm.
So that gives you a lot more wiggle room, right? So even if you're making more, right, even for the top tier, the 37%, it starts for married individuals at 693, while for singles, it starts for 578.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but you still get a benefit for being married, which I don't think you should.
Why not?
Well, why? Just because you decided to tie your knots?
The government it seems that it's necessary. So
So,
you take
Dwayne,
it.
you don't trust the government on other things.
No,
This you trust them on?
yes, because it's in my favor.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Hypocrisy.
here, and actually it's your government because in Canada it's not the same. So I'm just
Oh,
looking
really?
it up here, right?
Okay. Tell me.
Um, it says,
And it's not my government because I am not a citizen.
but it's your country.
It's not my country. I don't pay
Do
taxes. They can deport me.
do married couples get taxed more in Canada? So it says married couples in Canada are taxed at the same rates as unmarried people. There are some potential benefits that come with being married or living in common law partners that could lower your overall tax liability, but the rates for your income are the same. And that's from Wealth Simple. So yeah, that's why what you were saying didn't make any sense. But how it can benefit is if one has a high tax bracket and one has a low tax bracket, you can split your income. Like with the RRSP, you can transfer some of that money into the RRSP and then transfer it to the lower tax bracket spouse, and that lowers the overall tax bracket of the marriage. Yeah, that I agree with you. So it doesn't benefit me. So I agree. You should bring that up on your next vote. That doesn't make any sense.
On my next what?
On your next vote.
No, I can't vote.
Oh yeah. Well, get married. Then it's going to lower your tax brackets.
I'm okay. I don't feel like I need to get married for my tax brackets. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's a good marketing campaign. If I
Goodness.
was running a dating website, I would put their benefits, lower your tax bracket.
Yeah, I feel like no. Anyways.
But it didn't make sense to me that it didn't
Yeah, and
that
that's why
yeah.
it doesn't make sense. Oh, look, we found a difference between the Canadian and the American.
Oh, I'm sure there's lots.
Yeah. It's
I'm sure there's lots. What are what are some tips that you would give some single people?
go on
What's one of
vacation.
your biggest tips? Go on vacation. So spend it while you can.
Send it while
This is
you
your
can.
tip.
So, yeah, of course, spend it. No. So I would say for me, the thing that I really had to figure out when I was really trying to get a hold on my finances was really coming up with a system that worked for me because I didn't have time to consistently like check things. I remember when I was in residency and I was literally living like paycheck to paycheck, and I would like forget to pay the light bill. I'd forget to like pay certain things because not because I didn't have the money, but just because I forgot. I literally forgot. So as soon as I could, I put everything on auto pay. Um,
Hmm.
and that helped so much because it was less things to do. So I just kept doing that as a part of my strategy. Everything is on auto.
Auto,
Um,
yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, everything is on auto. So all of my money comes out before like the day after I get paid. So if my paycheck goes on Thursday, I have all of my savings coming out the next day. I have everything. The only things that don't come out are like my rent because I'm not in charge of when that comes out, but it comes out automatically.
Hmm.
So that is like my number one tip, and it's not for everybody because you have to have a certain level of financial security to put things on auto pay. But if you can, like saving on those late fees are golden. I hate late fees. That was my main thing. And then, you know, my other part is so I don't have to keep like detailed paperwork, which may be confusing or a little, this may not be for everybody, but I just open up separate bank accounts.
Hmm.
I have probably about 5 or 6 savings accounts for different causes.
Hmm.
And that just works for me. So I have a different one for my down payment. I have one for vacations. I have one for emergencies. And then I have one for extras. And this is basically the envelope
That's
thing.
the jars, yeah, the
Yeah.
envelopes. Exactly. That's
Yeah,
what I was gonna say. It's a
but it's on the
virtual
computer.
jar
Yeah,
or virtual envelope.
exactly. Because who really wants to pull out cash every two
I
weeks?
don't know who uses cash anymore.
Some people do.
Really?
Yeah, I saw somebody with oh, I saw your cousin with cash the other
Oh, our cousin.
your cousin.
Our cousin.
It's Jamari.
No, I know, I know. Um, by the way, you I agree 100% with the auto, putting as much as you can, set it and forget it
Mhm.
is what I like to call it. It's a very good strategy. I would give one from a family perspective. You're not going to relate to this one, Camille. Communication. Communication, communication, communication. See, Camille's looking at me funny because she's like, I don't have anyone to communicate with. I just communicate with myself. Um, but in
Camille,
the
did you save enough money? No, I spent it on a drone. Camille, are you ready to go on vacation? Yes, I'm gonna take some extra money from X, Y, and Z. That's how I communicate.
families, yeah, communication is a big key because you all want to be on the same page. I've seen a lot of people get in trouble because they live two separate lives. So, this person's doing one thing, this person's doing something different. And it goes back to my example of the two horses pulling the same carriage, but they're running in different directions. And that's just a matter of time before it catches up, right? Communication, communication, communication.
What are your thoughts on like accounts? So like I say, I have an account for like everything. Do you do like one account and you guys all split from there? Do you have separate accounts and like a joint account that you put everything in, or is everything separate? Like how do you manage that aspect of
We
it?
have several different accounts,
Mhm.
but they're all joint accounts,
Okay, so you
right?
just
So
have everyone has access to everything.
everyone has access. God forbid something happens to me. Um, you know, my wife can take over and continue doing. If something happens to her, I can, like, we don't have separate accounts. My grandfather, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why, and we did this before, but my grandfather passed away last year, right? And when we went to his funeral, one of the, not last year, the year before last, one of the main issues was his wife, my grandmother, wasn't on any of the accounts.
Mm.
And going to the bank to get that, you have to provide the death certificate. You got to provide all of these things. And it took a long time for them because she has to prove who she is. And it's actually worse here in Canada because then all these things go to your estate and all this kind of stuff, right? So in order to avoid that, when you have a joint account, it won't get frozen, by the way. When, when the person dies, they freeze it. It gets frozen right away. So imagine a lot of your resources are tied up there and now it's frozen. So for that reason, I would recommend, yeah. I mean, you're married, you might as well put the other person's name on there and they should put your name on there. I know different people have different beliefs and so forth, but that's what works for us.
Think ultimately it comes down to making sure that you have a plan, and that the plan will work for you in whatever setting you're in at the moment, and that it stays flexible, right? So
Yeah.
whether it's my low maintenance, spend it all and, or save and then spend the rest type mindset, versus having a line by line budget. If it works for you, then it works for you, but it's important to have a plan in the first place.
I agree 100%. Couldn't have been said any better.
Of
Have a
course, I
plan.
said it.
And there you have it. By the way, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. We do appreciate each and every single one of you. Next week, we're going to be here next Sunday. Tune in. We're going to be talking about a very, very fun topic. Does money equal freedom? So hopefully you'll join us next Sunday.
Please feel free to like, subscribe, give us some comments, tell us what you want to hear, and what you want to hear from us. We are having the time of our life, so we can talk about anything. But we would love to hear from those people who have decided to stick with us week to week, what you would love to hear.
See you next week.
Bye.